course, remaking the Nigerian project, roles of stakeholders, is the focus of our discussion today on This Morning on ITV, your ultimate news and current affairs program on television. That's because every time it seems like we're getting it right, and then of course something happens and then it's as though we're starting all over again. And then of course you find the blame game starting with the politicians blaming the electorate, and as is always the case, the electorate is blaming the politicians for stealing the money, for making promises that they know they won't keep, and then the blame game continues. And then you have other institutions of government and of governance not living up to their expectations, and some have even said the traditional institution, the religious institution, they are also part of the problem. So today, as much as we can, we just unravel all of these as far as this discussion is concerned. I have with me in the studio Mr. Elvis Obaseki, is a public and political commentator. Elvis, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I also have with us in the studio a national labor leader, former TUC chairman at the state. I'd like to welcome very especially Dr. Joe Aligbe.
Thank you very much.
Joe, it's been a while. Where have you been?
Well, national assignment, of course.
All right, thank you so much for coming.
Thank
well,
you.
Let's begin this conversation by looking at Nigeria as a country. Over 50 years of our independence, and each time it appears that we're on a trajectory to be at par with other countries of the world, and then it looks like something happens and then we're taking, like we make 10 steps forward and then 100 steps backward. Why is this so with Nigeria? Let me begin with you, Elvis.
Thank you, Sonny, for the invitation. Well, first of all, I think we can't take away the fact that Nigeria was a very blessed country.
Yeah.
In terms of human and material resources, Nigeria is blessed. The only thing that I think this country has a problem with is the leadership and the followership. Because the people deserve the kind of government they get. And the accountability process in Nigeria is not there. You see a crowd going after a man who will tell you that, yes, I will do this, and I will do this, and I will do this. You fall for the rhetorics, and you go to the polls, you vote the man in. The electoral process allows you to do an appraisal with your vote in another 4 years. You'll be surprised that the man that you know, and it's very obvious that he has failed. The same people that voted in 4 years ago will be the same people that will come back to revote the man. And when you talk about policies within the 4 years that Nigerians are supposed to look at how far our votes have done and how far those who voted they've led us, those that you think are supposed to be complaining, but because of political crumbs, I want to call them crumbs because really, the average Nigerian deserves what he's getting. But because of those crumbs that fall off the master's table, they will even make you that will be looking at what you think is bad to sound as if you that is seeing what is bad is the one that is bad. That is why I say the problem is on the side of the leadership and on the side of the followership who has refused to ask the leader to be accountable to the mandate.
Okay. Can you build on that, Dr. Aligbe?
Yes.
In terms of this back and forth movement, so to speak.
Yes. What he has, your questions actually explain the contradiction in the Nigerian projects. And of course, his position, it is correct. It's both sides of the followership and the leadership. And sometimes you have contradictory expectations, both on the side of leadership and on the side of followership. And right while it is said that it takes two to tango, I think we are all guilty. You can't blame leadership alone, neither you blame the followership alone. Because the people have the power to demand good leadership from the leaders. But very often we don't do that. I do not subscribe to the explanation that because they are deflated economically, that is why they cannot do what is expected of them. After all,
They have the power under a democratic dispensation that we are now to change, to elect. So, if you now refuse, either by way of apathy, to participate in the democratic process, you continue to criticize and stay aloof, and leave it and say it is a dirty game, and leave it for those who you think are dirty. Of course, their political decision will determine your fate, economically, socially, or otherwise. So that's why we find ourselves where we are now. Okay. And I think that is why today's discussion is very, very relevant. Because if you see as it is, there are three main issues that one should look at. Okay. When we talk about reshaping Nigeria, it means that we are heading towards a third stage. There are things you need to look at. The capacity of the government to provide goods and services for a population, for a people. Very, very important. Right now, I do not think that the government have been able to provide the essential goods and services for its people. The second thing you want to look at, do the government provide the necessary security for its people against threatening armed militia here and there? No. And of course, the third issue you want to look at, do government enjoy legitimacy? I can say yes. Of the three basic things you want to look at to say whether this state is a sovereign state and the state is an ongoing, or a going concern as an entity, you can only score the government just one out of three. That is legitimacy. Therefore, it is important for us now to look at what are those things we need to do quickly so that we will move towards a failed state.
Okay. All right. I will come back to that point in the course of the discussion. But let's take some of the key stakeholders in this whole project and see what they've done, where they are, and of course, what impact they have made. Let's begin with political parties. We know in democracy that you can't get to any position except you ride in the vehicle of a political party. Our political parties, how would you assess the level of impact made in remaking of Nigerian project, and how do you think that such contributions or efforts can be galvanized to reshape and rework Nigeria so we can get to the point that we want to get to? Let me begin with you, Elvis.
Well, I think to a very large extent, especially in this republic, our political parties have not really played the roles that they are supposed to play in the development of Nigeria. If we go back to the time of the UPN, the Action Congress, the MPN, and the rest, you could see that the manifestos of political parties were tailored towards where the political parties want to play, the roles they want to play in the life of the citizenry. But now, in the present republic, we have now taken a political party just as a vehicle to power. Immediately a man gets power sitting on the saddle of a political party, at the point of achieving power, he practically jettisons the manifestos of that party and runs the thing the way it suits him. Can you today sit and say this is the ideology of the party to the left or the party to the right or any of the parties? The only thing that separates them today now might be the logos of the party. Sincerely, because I want to talk about the government at the center today. Most of the things we read before 2015, even some of us that felt, things are not really that fine. Why don't you look at this option? You know? But today, what do you have? At least I read in some of the manifestos that came up then of the dollar coming up from wherever the dollar was at 206 and coming to being 1 naira to a dollar. Some thought it was not practicable economically. But I looked at what the Ghanaians did, knocking off some zeros off their dollar. It might not be with the same value. Okay. But looking at it, the fact that the dollar is almost equivalent to the Ghanaian city, not the Ghanaian the city? Yes, looking at it from that angle, it gives you the sense of is 1 to 1 or 1 to 1.5. So we all have this feeling that yes, maybe some of these things will change, but today, what do you have? it's at the point that says, you know, whenever you take something into the net, you can never bring it down. And whenever you make some comments, even before you step out of this room, it's already gone viral. That is what social media does. You see some of those promises made that are supposed to have been part of a manifesto of a party that wanted to at least offer a change, offer a different diet, and give Nigerians hope for a brighter tomorrow. Completely. None ever came up when the government came in. And so why I think to, in summing up, I think to a very large extent, our political parties have not really played the role they are supposed to play in remaking the Nigerian project. And not until we go back to give our manifestos the way you said you were going to do it before an election, you do it during an election, and you wait after 4 years to be appraised and given a pass mark at the polls. But now, most political parties, instead of pursuing their manifestos, they all gathered the monies to hijack the process after 4 years, because really, sometimes what we call an electoral process, I will call a democratic process, is more of a hijack.
Okay. All right. I think just to look at the points that you raised, I will summarize it this way: that you have the political party with their manifesto, if they have, and then the government has its own agenda. There is no synergy between the manifesto of the political party, if it exists, and what the government is doing. That's the point you're trying to highlight. Okay. Now, how can a political party be more relevant in ensuring that we reshape this country, Dr. Joe?
I think in all the stakeholders, the political parties are more important. Because what goes on in the political parties or in the political process, whether there is toggery, whether there is rule of law, whether there is order, whether there is chaos or not, will determine what now happens with the security agencies, their interventions. It will also tell us what now happens in the judicial process. Of course, remember Justice Ikpeme and all of them, the infamous ABN under Atozeribe. What happens in the political party eventually goes to the judiciary. So for that, the political party is very, very important and central. Not just that it's a product of its environment. It is the activity that goes on in the political party that imparts on the environment, that is the political process. So we must continue to look at the political party as the major of all the stakeholders. And in that case, I don't think the political parties have played their role very well. You want to start, what is expected of them? Of course, he has laid the foundation that, look, they're supposed to have a manifesto. And the manifesto of the party should be supreme. Should be supreme. The leaders are elected under the platform of political party must respect the manifesto and implement that manifesto. And that's what we have seen in previous, particularly during the First and Second Republic. But what we have now, you have a situation where like the government at the center, the government saying no, Mr. President never made such claim. It was the party or the political organization that made that statement. You now begin to ask yourself, how do you separate what your political organization or your party said and what you stand for? Because whatever you are implementing is supposed to be. So the political party must wake up. And again, that brings about issue of integrity, issue of ideology. Because if you have ideology and you have integrity, the leadership will call the government to order and say, no, you must implement. But right now, because of what you may call stomach infrastructure, or what you may call pecuniary gains, or whatever, the leadership of the various political party in Nigeria as it is today have sold their rights to elected officers. When you now have the elected officer, either Mr. President or Mr. Governor, as the leader of the party, what is an aberration? In an ideal situation, the party is supposed to be a check on its elected officers. But when you now allow the elected officer as not the leader of the party, the question is, who called you to order? If you are a leader, whether you are a father in a family, or a pastor in a church, or a president, you do not have anybody to call you to order, to tell you that, look, you are right or you are wrong, then you are maybe heading towards perdition. And that is why it is important that the political party must assume their role and ensure that the manifesto is respected and implemented by the party. And also that we expect also too there should be internal democracy. We cannot be talking about democracy without having internal democracy. Right now we have problems. Well, it doesn't matter whether you do it either by way of resolution, if your party allow that, or you go for primaries or congresses, if your party constitution allow that. But whatever it is, there must be transparency. And everybody must be. Political party, there is not a battlefield. It's not a battle. It is a game where you expect tolerance, where you expect moderation, where you expect that there should be no hate speech. There should be no hate speech. But we found out that right here, particularly in 2015, there was so much hate speech. And we thank God for Nigeria that God loves Nigeria. Otherwise, some of those things are enough to incite people, to lead to chaos and anarchy. So the political party on its own must play its role very well to ensure that their manifestos are respected, to ensure that there is internal democracy, to ensure that there is tolerance and moderation, to ensure also too that they do things in a way that will promote democracy. If these things are put in place, then we cannot say we are on the right path of making progress. Because don't forget, as it is in Nigeria today, we do not have independent candidates. They must go through the political process. So whoever they are giving to us, that is those we are going to vote for. And that's why it is important. The political party must play their role very well.
All right. In line with that, how do you think the political party can play their role very well, successfully, without funding? Because what has been the lot in Nigeria is that individuals spend money, invest in the political parties, and so they probably take charge. And that seems to be the reason why the state chief executive or the chief executive, either at the state level or at the federal level, has now become the leader of the party. What do you make of this as a critical challenge in intra-party democracy, party stability, and then the political party being able to be independent in a way and manner that it can actually check whoever is elected, just like Dr. Aligbe said?
I think the major problem from that angle is the way our economy looks like today. You cannot divorce money from politics, but at least we can check the excesses. All over the world, money must be involved in an electoral process.
Okay.
But because of this issue of stomach infrastructure, so much has been mortgaged. If we go back to 1979, when Shagari was president, the party, Adisa Akinori was the chairman of the MPN. And most of the other parties had their presidential aspirants also being the leaders of the party. But these were two clear-cut, distinct roles. But in the present system, and I think the fact that too much money went to some people in the military era, you see that most of those that determine the pace of Nigerian politics today are ex-general this, ex-general that. What gave them that power? Too much money. And the monies that has come into the Nigerian politics, the Nigerian political system, seem to be in the hands of some few. And those few that might not want to come up on the ballot want to be, at least you sit in a corner and you dictate the pace. And the only way you can dictate the pace in a system where ideology does not sell, where ideology does not exist, is through money. Today is an aberration, as the doctor has just mentioned, that you have the leader of the party being the president, the leader of the party in the states being the governor. Who is the check? And the reason why you can't check it is whenever you have to do anything in that party, that is the source of funding. Even when you bring monies in from the public sector or from the industry, the captains of industry, these monies are put in just because of what they expect the leader of the party to give back to them in patronage. So not until we go back and ask ourselves, where did you get it wrong? It will remain like this. It will continue the way it is now. And not until we get to a point where I'll say, okay, I'm voting this man because of his integrity, because of his reputation, not because he belongs to a party that has money bags to change the result at the polls. or to project him, but because we know that if we give this man the mandate, he will change things. That is when we begin to head towards the angle of de-emphasizing the influence of money in the Nigerian political system.
Yeah, Dr. Aligbe.
I think I want to quickly add to that, that right now, we have some guidelines, if I don't want to call it law, even the Constitution, on funding of political parties. How political parties should be funded is well explained, even in the INEC guidelines. So my expectation is that we should keep to the rules, because source of funding is well clear. If you get funding from sources that are not recognized, that are not permitted by law, you already are guilty of the electoral laws. So we expect that on issue of funding, parties should keep to the rule. And of course, institutions should play their role very well to ensure that they verify the sources of funding. Outside that, we expect also that political parties on their own should in a way reduce, this monetization of you want to purchase form, you have to spend millions for a presidential candidate. I think that should be reduced.
So how will the party have the funds to spend? For example, in campaigns, if they don't create opportunities or avenues for them to generate funds from sales of forms and stuff like that?
As a party member, you are supposed to, that's what we do in the union. In the trade union, you pay. How do you get money to fund the union? It's by union dues. As a member of the political party, you are supposed to pay dues. That is the expectation. What they now do is that when congresses are coming, they just compile the name, doctor it, and say these have been our members for the past 4 years or the past 3 years. And so, because what makes you a member? Registration. One, you must pay your registration fee, obtain a membership card, and pay your dues for the funding of the political party. But do they pay for? Do they fund the party? They don't pay. They don't pay. And when you don't pay your membership due to fund the party, one, you do not even claim it. You do not own it. What will happen that a money bag will just come, pay all the dues, and say these are the members and these are the authentic members. And that's what happens. So it now goes back. Of course, we have said that the electorate are part of the problem, must play their role. Yeah. And that's where the electorate comes in. As a member of a political party, you belong to a party, you pay your membership due. It's your membership due that will be used to fund the party. That is done everywhere. And of course, you discover that even in some campaigns, which we expect, of course, it happened in 2011, where presidential candidates or aspirants, candidates now, they come over and say, oh, this is my campaign organization, if you want to support, and people were paying 10 naira, 20 naira. You raise funds like that. Of course, the current president, President Muhammadu Buhari, have said, and of course some of us believe him, when he said certain people contributed to his campaign. People believe that believe that he's a man of integrity, he can bring about the desired change, and they make contributions. And we are seeing some of them on television coming to say, oh, I contributed X, Y, Z. That's how it is done. If you have a campaign group, you have a campaign office, people can support. But in that case, there are limitations which have been said. They are there. The INEC, this thing. Yeah. So how much an individual can contribute to fund a candidate, how much an organization can contribute to fund a candidate, respect the ceilings, respect the rules. And if we do that, I am sure we're able to pass. And of course, we must not, if you give in so much to money, like you are saying that they must have money to fund and all that and that, of course there will be problem. The money bags will hijack it. And I think we should downplay that. All right,
let's just look at this, which is that already there is a skewed mindset amongst the electorate as it relates to funding political parties, to give them that legitimacy, to give them that ownership. But the skewed mindset is that those who have money should be in political parties. They should be the one funding the political party. How do you think the electorates can have ownership of these political parties when there is no appropriate and adequate stomach infrastructure, as it were?
You see, we're back to square one. The economic situation of this country. It's one of the biggest problems that we have. And participation in the electoral process is still very low. If we go back to the statistics of the 2015 election, less than 27 million, about 27, 28 million, went to the polls in a country of about 180 million. That still shows that there is serious apathy, there is serious lack of participation, and if the people that are supposed to participate are not, who now does the funding? If you notice, I don't think there is any political party in this country that will say he or she, any of the parties that have up to 5 million registered members in their database. It's not possible. And if you look at that, looking at it from the angle of subscription or monthly dues, the way the system is, how many members of a political party believes in the transparency of the system to want to say, okay, every month I'm putting 1,000 in? It's only when we head towards elections, you hear political parties giving or aspirants giving the toga of being funded by the populace. But in actual fact, the big money still come from one or two persons. All we see, the only politician that has done that is not even in Nigeria, is in America. When Obama did his fundraising, at least I knew there was an attempt to raise funds at the Muson by the former president of the NSC, yes, Professor Indiro Okereke, in Nigeria, because they all believed in the Obama project. But in this country, they will come at you, give you the impression that, yeah, Nigerians are the ones funding us. But you and I know 2-3 persons will put all the billions behind the aspiration or behind the process, and gives you the impression that about let whoever said he raised money from Nigerians just publish the bank statement of the contributions that Nigerians made. And the fact that we still dwell in a cash-based economy, somebody can give you $1 billion cash in this country and nobody will trust it. Yeah. But you can't do that in the American system. You remember when the man that had the drug issue donated to Bill Clinton's campaign? The American system shook. They asked him and he was made to account for that. But in this country, billions can be given to a candidate and those billions will come in Ghana must go. So even if INEC wants to implement the rule, not until the stakeholders, those that are participating are people of reputation and people that have the integrity to say, okay, this is not right. We can do it. When the president came in 2015, that was the mantra that he sold to Nigerians, and I know that was a lie. Because how can those 10 naira, those 1,000 naira, rent private jets that will travel to 36, the visits to the 36 states in Nigeria? It's not possible. We all know what a private jet costs for you to be on air for an hour. So we should not, we always give the toga, give the garb of legitimacy, the garb of this is what we are doing and we are doing it right in everything we do in this country. But not until you, at least you bring that satellite into what is really going on, then you know that it's unloaded with.
Okay. If you just join us, the program is TMI Monday with yours sincerely. Remaking the Nigerian project, roles of stakeholders is the focus of this discussion. Just to show to us that remaking the Nigerian project or taking Nigeria to where it ought to be is not an individual thing. It's not a job for the politicians alone, neither is it a job for the electorate, or is it a job for the religious leaders, or of course the institutions of government. Is a collaborative action and effort for us to make things right. And I have with me Dr. Joe Aligbe and Elvis Obaseki. Gentlemen, let's take this discussion further and look at some other stakeholders that have a critical say in remaking the Nigerian project. Let's look at the religious institution, the traditional and religious institution. How far have we gone in this aspect as stakeholders in remaking the Nigerian project, Dr. Aligbe?
I want to say unequivocally that the religious institutions have not played their role very well. The religious institutions have so much followers, whether Islamic, whether Christian, they have so much followers. If they have been able to educate their members, if they have that vigor with which they ask them for tithes and tell them to get their PVC, the way they talk about tithes, if they have that civic education, either in the mosque or in their churches, I tell you, Nigeria will be better for it. So the religious institutions, they have not played their role very well. I have heard some pastors. They say, look, I am not concerned about politics. Of course, that is a lie. You must be concerned about politics. Because if you are not concerned about politics, they can make law and tell you, look, right now you'll be paying taxes. They can make law to say, oh, your CFO is revoked. Where will you practice your religion? They can tell you, well, there should be no adult broadcasts. So you must be interested, because the political class determines what's happened. So I want to say that right now, the religious institution should have an advocacy group or a political arm, not to talk politics as it were, that have to do with civic education.
Of their congregation.
Civic education. Civic education is not just about politics. It's about governance. So that civic education should focus on governance. That is, you playing your role well, and that you have the right to vote, be voted for, and what it means. You should be able to educate them about their rights. You should be able to educate them also to their responsibility. For instance, they should pay tax. You should educate them on why they should pay tax. For instance, I am a Christian. I can say for sure that Jesus didn't talk about tax. He paid tax. He asked Peter, look, get the coin. What is it? Pay for pay for me and pay yours. And of course, you remember also too, election. Even when they met Moses and said, look, there was complaint about inheritance of a particular man that didn't have sons, and they have only doctor. This is what the law says. And they approached the leader and told Moses, this is what the law says. What do we do? So you must hold your leaders accountable. So religious leaders should have that civic education. And what I expect right now is that if you go to any mosque, if you go to any church, please tell your members, go and get your permanent voter's card. Get your permanent voter's card and exercise your franchise. It is very, very well. It's your civic responsibility to exercise your franchise. If they do that, they can avoid issue of partisanship, of saying vote for particular candidate or not. So partisanship should not be part of it, but civic education should be part of it, so that they can exercise their rights. I tell you, if our pastors put in just a little effort like that of pursuing tithes and offering, I assure you there will be a positive change in the political landscape of Nigeria.
What's your assessment of the traditional institution? Because that's another very powerful institution.
The traditional institution right now, as it were, except in the northern part of Nigeria, because you discover that the culture, the religion and tradition, that's kind of a fusion. And their pronouncements is more weighty than what you have down south. It's more weighty. But that is not to say the traditional institution cannot play their role. They can, through their very respective channels of communication, to educate the people. When I say down south, I'm only generalizing. But if you look at it, for instance, in Edo, Edo is different. Just look at issue of trafficking, human trafficking, the pronouncement of the Omonoba. And you can see the positive effect on the people. Imagine if the Omonoba will make a pronouncement today and direct that all Edo people should go and get their permanent voter's card. I tell you, the speed will treat everybody. We go and get their permanent voter's card. So what I'm trying to say is that the traditional institution should please come out. We are not asking you to be partisan, because you are father of all. Don't be partisan. Partisan comes in when you now begin to say, vote for candidate A or candidate B, or political party A or political party B. But if you say, go and get your permanent voter's card and exercise your franchise, that is not partisanship. That is civic responsibility, which I expect the traditional institution to do. Right now, we have not seen that. And I think they should address their mind to that.
Elvis, you share the same sentiments in terms of the impact of the religious and traditional institutions on...
I do. And I also think, if we look at it from the angle of the religious leaders, outside pushing that civic education within their congregations, I also feel the leaders should at least try as much as possible to run away from making political statements from the pulpit or when they lead their followers in prayer. some of the crises we had up north always came up immediately after the Jumite services on Fridays. So you ask, there must have been something that would have precipitated such actions. Because most of you, especially after the 2011 general election, okay. And digressing a little bit, I think we, at every given point in time, should always give credit to our immediate past president, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. If that man had not taken that step of making that call and conceding victory, defeat to the president, two things would have happened in Nigeria that period. One would have dragged for a year and at least a year and a half or about 18 months, the litigation process. And that would have made the president, as of today, not done anything serious while still trying to get legitimacy from the courts for his position. And I think we'll have to give him credit for that. And that statement, if he had in any way asked that is the system be questioned, supporters from left, right, and center would have gone on the streets of Nigeria, and that would have burnt the system. Going back to where our religious leaders, to some extent, are missing it. They say religion is an opium, and we are a very religious people. The average Nigerian still feels that he has to talk to God before he takes an action. And they say faith without works is dead. You know, that is one of the problems we have. So if these privileged persons are the ones that control the minds of their congregation, really they control the minds of their congregation, why don't you just sell that extra, go the extra mile, go grab your PVC. I'm not saying go vote for party A or party B. Having it alone will give you the opportunity to decide who you want to lead you. Then you now pray after having it. I don't believe in pushing prayers and fasting and having night vigils for a political process that you are not a participant in. And those that are involved, some are involved for their own pecuniary gains. You see some religious leaders making very strong political statements on the pulpit. Yeah. And because God is a God of mercy, He will not strike you yet. He will give you a long rope. And we have a way of skewing the minds of the followers to say this is what our pastor said. When you come to the angle of the traditional rulers, it's almost the same thing, but I think most of the first class
traditional rulers,
because the traditional rulers is graded.
Oh yeah.
Most of the first class, they have tried in their own way to divorce themselves from political statements or taking political positions. Okay. But we know some of them are still guilty to some extent. You know, I wouldn't want to name another in the southwest area who makes very strong political statements. Everybody in your palace, all the chiefs in your palace cannot belong to
one political party.
No, it's not possible. And I also feel from the side that we also are in, some of those that are with our fathers, our royal fathers, should divorce themselves from politics completely. Especially when you rise up to that height, your statements now become as if you are speaking the mind of the monarch himself. So such persons should at least. Then another thing that I think the political class can save the traditional rulers from is this word of endorsement. You visit a palace, you go see a religious leader, and instead of just living there with a prayer, the next thing you see on the news dailies and in the news is that so and so traditional ruler or so and so religious leader has endorsed. You get what I mean? And this is at that point of using that word endorsement, which has now become a part of the Nigerian body politic. You have taken that religious leader or the traditional ruler from their political position of being a father to all. You box him into a corner to be a supporter of one.
Is this the problem of the aspirant, as the case may be, or the politician, or is the problem of the traditional ruler, as the case may be?
It's an amalgam, it's a mix. Because if you misquote me, the way I will come at you the next day will make you not try the next time. But because one or two things that happen behind the scene, who has been misquoted or is giving the person that has been misquoted allows it to be,
then once you allow it to be, then it's true.
Okay, Dr.
But I think the problem of traditional ruler or religious leader,
yes,
the politicians, you know, it's politics. Yeah. Everybody wants to be endorsed. If I live here today, I will tell, look, if ITV does not approve of what I'm doing, they will invite me. I can go and tell my members that. They want to applaud me. You know, as politicians, you want to get more applause from your people. So it is allowed for politicians to make some statements. But I think the onus rests on a traditional ruler or even the religious leader. Because when they come before camera, you can't tell them, I am the father of all. You don't make ambiguous statements. Very direct and clear. And that's why I must say, you know, you didn't want to mention names, but sometimes you need to mention names so that those who are listening to us can say, oh, it's true or not. That's why I like the Omonoba Nedo. They always make their statement very clear. And you see it. You don't misquote them. Except maybe some hierarchy chief who want to play to the Garana because of their political affiliation. But the traditional institution would not be unlike the Oba of Lagos that made a statement. That one, I'm sure that what you were referring to. I mean, you should be known. And that's why some of us, when we go out of Edo State, we are very proud of our Monoba because he's respected. The statements are clear. There's no ambiguity. You know where he stands. Unlike some other traditional ruler, first class, whatever, that dabbles into politics. So I think the only rest of traditional rulers to ensure that they are known for who they are. Okay. But my appeal that I want to make to all of them, please, while you remain apolitical, please educate your people. Tell them that it is their right to vote and be voted for. Call them out so that apathy will not be there, so that they can participate, because they have so much influence on their subjects.
This rests squarely on, because the line that's run through all we've talked about so far is educating the people. This is a collaborative effort from the political parties to the traditional institution to the religious institution. You want to quickly comment on that?
Yes, education is very important. Right now, we do not have that education in Nigeria. Not even those who are educated, as it were, by way of going to the four walls of the institutions, they don't have that particular education. Like, I can tell you authoritatively, because of my relationship with those in the academia, they just criticize. They just criticize. They criticize and criticize. The social media, you see them talking and talking. But when it comes to the real action, they don't know.
They don't even have a PVC.
They are not there. They don't have the PVC. You call them talks, but they decide what happens. You call them admiral, but they decide what happens. And you think you are educated? Politically, you are not educated. I think we need to have that political education. It can only happen also too. Pastor, you are look, after the night vigil, my friend, go and get it's your PVC that determines what happens. So it's a PVC. God has given us the power. There are things that are divine. There are things that are human. God has left the voting for us. He will not come down and vote. So you go and get your PVC and vote after the prayers and ask for direction. So if you don't have your PVC, so in essence, we need that education. And I think this is where most of us should come out. Everybody, not just only the political party. For instance, that they are doing that, they educate their members on what to do. I think we need more of it. The media should, in a way, just as you are doing now, it's part of the education process. Educate their people. We expect also too that civil society organizations should come out at this time and play their role. And we know there's an education and enlightenment arm of INEC. They should do their work. We know so much is always voted for that. They should use the right to vote to do enlightenment. Yes. So the enlightenment, not only just for the traditional institution or the political parties, other institutions, other stakeholders like INEC should do voters education. It's very, very important. We all know that there is budgetary allocation for it, and other stakeholders should do that, so that we can throw away this political apathy and come out and exercise our rights.
Okay, Elvis, a last word from you on this Remaking Nigeria project, roles of stakeholders. Well, we talked about the political parties, traditional religious institutions, and of course the electorate. Probably would have looked at other institutions of governance, INEC, security agency, but in the course of the conversation, we've also touched them, you know, in one way or the other. What's your final take?
I think I want to sum up from the angle of getting involved. Because if you still look at the statistics that INEC has as the number of registered voters in this country, it's still less than 80 million altogether.
That's what they even targeted for 2019. Yeah.
So if we really want to change the narrative, the best thing to do is to get involved. We cannot be running commentaries from the sidelines while we allow the lowest in the society to be the ones to take the decision that will determine where our society is heading towards. So I want to sign off this morning by appealing to Nigerians, get a voter's card.
All right. In the sentiments, Dr. Ali,
of course I do.
You talked participation.
Participation. We must all come out and participate in the process, because the Nigerian project belongs to all of us, and if you don't participate, it will be too dangerous and you cannot complete thereafter. So please come out and participate. Get your PVC and exercise your franchise.
Okay, that's just a beautiful way to sign off this discussion on remaking the Nigerian project. Get your PVC and participate. No matter what you say, no matter how you feel about the situation now, in one way or the other, you contributed. If you voted, you contributed. If you didn't vote at all, you also, in fact, you are the biggest culprit. Okay, so the best bet is to actually ensure you get your PVC and you participate, and of course, ensure that what you want is what prevails. If eventually you make that decision with your PVC, it really doesn't turn out the way you expected. It's not a big deal, but you have satisfied yourself. You have ensured that you exercised your franchise.